the 16 days activism against gender-based violence, and the theme for this year is every 10 minutes a woman is killed, hashtag no excuse, united to end violence against women. Now, to discuss this theme and other pressing issues regarding gender-based violence, I have here with me today Boluwatife Adenuga, a seasoned lawyer, social impact development consultant, who is the founder of Raleigh MC Aidin Foundation, an NGO that focuses on gender advocacy, education, youth empowerment, and upholding fundamental rights. You're welcome, ma'am.
Thank you very much.
It's so happy to have you. Yes, we are so happy to have you here in the studio. All right, so let's go right into it. Now, for a layman or for someone that has little understanding of what gender-based violence is all about and this awareness movement, what is it about and why is it so important?
All right, thank you very much for that question. Gender-based violence is violence against different genders, violence against the opposite gender. It could be against women, against girls, against, and it could also be against men and against boys. And gender-based violence doesn't always have to do with physical violence. Violence can come in different types. Gender-based violence can be emotional, it could be psychological, it can be even financial, it can be social. So the gist about gender-based violence is that it is done basically, in layman terms, it's done basically against another gender.
All right. So you run an NGO regarding this gender issues and advocacy. So what was the inspiration and the motivation towards that?
All right. Thank you very much. Naturally, when I was growing up, I had seen so many young girls being abused, share stories about how they were abused by an uncle, abused by a relative and all of those things. And I think I sort of had a bit of that experience as well, even though we were really young then and we didn't know what was abuse. When we just feel like abuse has to be rape and all of that. No, gender-based violence is beyond rape. There are so many parts to it. So I think the kind of experiences I had while I was growing up and, so many things I heard other people say made me think that I had to stand up and do something about it, because naturally I'm the kind of person that likes to take responsibility. So starting up Raleigh Aidin Foundation, I was going to say that. Yes,
sorry about that.
That's fine.
Yes.
So starting up Raleigh Aidin Foundation was birthed out of the place of wanting to take responsibility against harmful societal vices, especially against gender-based violence and matters pertaining to fundamental rights.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Thank you very much.
All right, so now regarding this week and the whole 16 days activism, I did my research and I realized that this activism has been going on. It started in 1991 until date, year after year, they do this. Now I'm wondering, why is it that this activism has been going on for years and the cases of gender-based violence, the number or the statistics has not declined, especially in Nigeria? Now we look at this year, particularly in Nigeria, this year has been a lot has happened, especially for femicide and a lot of other things like that against women and the gender generally. So what's the cause? Why is the statistic not dropping and this activism is going on every year?
All right, thank you very much. This particular question is actually very interesting. I believe that why the statistics has not been dropping is because as a nation, a lot of Nigerians or a lot of people, and I think I'm not even going to limit this to Nigeria alone, a lot of Africans have not been able to shift from the traditional mindset, from a cultural mindset that we were raised with. There's still a lot of patriarchal mentality, and those are the things that funds that fuels this fire of gender-based violence. For instance, while people were growing up, if you speak with 20 people, 19 out of 20 will tell you that when they were growing up, maybe their parents told them that this particular chore is gender-based. So we have socialized. We have made sure that some particular things that should be generally socialized has been streamlined to a particular gender, and these are the things that people grow up to see. You see. When you go to different African homes, you see parents telling their girl child that no, you should be in the kitchen, you should do this, yes, and then the boys are just there languishing around, they're just there doing their thing, playing games and all of those things. Mm-hmm. And those are the kind of boys that will grow up and become fathers, they'll become bosses to ladies at work, they'll become pastors, they'll become imams, you'll meet this kind of boys literally at
positions.
leadership positions, So I feel like the reason gender-based violence keeps increasing is that we have not been properly sensitized as to the way we can how do I put it now? I'm trying to pick my words carefully. We've not been properly sensitized to depart from our traditional way of thinking, our cultural way of thinking, and it's really, really affecting. You see many people that are even educated, and by the way, when you begin to find out how they reason, especially on this subject, you'll be shocked to find out that an educated person can reason that way. So that's basically it.
Thank you. So really, what's your take now on? I brought in femicide now, especially in Nigeria. What's your take on femicide and the whole? It feels like femicide just exploded in 2024 in Nigeria. So why do you think is one of the reasons for this issue now, streamlining it to, aside other types of violence, now femicide in Nigeria?
All right, thank you very much. Apart from femicide, if you look at what is happening around our economy, what is happening around around economy, basically, it's been a very difficult time for many Nigerians. Poverty is on the rise, hunger is on the rise. And when somebody, there's this adage that an hungry man is an angry man, right? So when somebody is hungry, there is no limit to what an hungry person can do. Hunger and anger will not make somebody think straight. So I feel like the first reason femicide has been on the rise now is because people are not in their right frame of mind because of the impact of the economy. So and then another factor is just poverty. Basically, poverty is like a major factor. It's very easy for somebody to react in a way that is very irrational when you don't have food on your table or you don't have money in your pockets. But nevertheless, it's still not an excuse.
All right. So when you hear of gender-based violence, when I'm speaking on behalf of majority of Nigerians, when we hear of gender-based violence and the activism around the awareness month and stuff like that, the first thing that comes to mind to a lot of Nigerians, and the reason why some people do not care so much about it, is because when we hear about this, what comes to mind is grants. They're giving out grants to organizations, and then they're having meetings in a fancy hotel, and people will gather, and there will be a lot of speakers, talking about this issue. People will gather, and it feels like it's so, but things are not being done. So what can you see now? What can you say are some of the active measures that the government should take at first, and then individuals? So let's address the government first. What do you think what are the active measures the government in Nigeria and globally should take towards this movement?
All right, thank you very much. That question is a very important question. First, I think that the government should engage the necessary stakeholders. There's been a lot of activism around gender-based violence for many years. But I think that was last week Monday, I attended an event, a UNODC event that the SSA to the President on Citizenship and Leadership organized at the UN House. And the second day of the event, they invited so many traditional leaders, and I was like, wow, this is a brilliant initiative. So I think this is something that the government should do, because if you're talking about gender-based violence, this thing starts from the homes. So how do we engage the major stakeholders? How do we engage the people who are involved? How do we engage the rural communities? So it is very important that the government is doing so much, there are so many beautiful initiatives to end gender-based violence, but are these initiatives, is it getting to the grassroots? Exactly. So it's very important for government to begin to extend their reach far into the grassroots. Let's take this activism, let's take this awareness into the rural communities. Let's have a gathering of community leaders, of religious leaders, of political leaders. Let's bring them to the table, let's bring them to the same place, and let them know that this thing is wrong. One thing I know about leadership is influence. When you bring a community leader or a political or religious leader to the table and you sensitize them enough, at the point where they begin to see reasons with you, those people will go back to their communities or go back to their church or mosque or go back to their political parties or whatever it is, and then they will spread the news and ensure that these things are being tackled right at the grassroots. And then another thing that is very important for government to do is to ensure that we set up measures, we set up standards, we set up organizations or structures, that's the word. We set up structures at the rural communities for reports of these cases. I work with the Legal Aid Council, and some of the times where we go to rural communities to, do awareness and sensitization, you will be shocked that these people have a lot to do, but they don't even know who to call. They don't even know that government has agencies. They are not involved. Yeah. So we need to involve the people at the grassroots, because these are the people who go through these things more because of lack of awareness. So
thank you so much. That was very enlightening.
Thank you.
All right, so we'll go to the individuals now. So when I was having a discussion with a friend, and it was a very funny discussion, and unfortunately an incident happened at home personally 2 weeks ago, very close to home, and we lost someone because of, it was a woman, because of this same issue now. So we lost her 2 weeks ago. And then so we were having a funny conversation, and she was so pained, and she said that at this point what's left for her is to go around with what's it called now, arms, and go around with little things that that she can use to protect herself. And I was like, this might not be the best approach to doing these things. Force might not be the best approach. So for individuals now, for ladies, for girls, and even for the men, what should be the approach, our approach to this gender-based violence?
Okay, thank you very much. I think that the first approach for every individual, lady, man, woman, boy, girl, children, is to first have an idea of what this thing is. Because gender-based violence, like I said from the section, cuts across different parts. So it is not just about rape. Whenever we hear gender-based violence, we just think this thing has to do with rape. It has to be sexual. We have to. It is very important that you have an understanding of what gender-based violence is, because when the purpose of a thing is unknown, abuse is definitely inevitable. Exactly. So it's very important that everybody has an understanding, a clear understanding of what it is. And then regarding this example you gave of this woman who said she was going to be going around with arms, while I do not comment that, I think that maybe from schools there's a need to begin to teach girls how to protect themselves, not with arms. Exactly. Not with arms. Yeah. Like some schools incorporate karate and all of those things, self-defense measures into their curriculum. It's very, very important, especially when it comes to the area of physical violence. There are times that when a man comes over a woman, and you cannot overpower the person, but if a woman is equipped enough, if you have the right knowledge about the fact that, okay, I've never done karate, so I don't know where I can punch, and then you'll be weak, and then I can escape. Exactly. Well, I think it's actually very, very important. It's important to incorporate these things into our curriculum from schools, and not because the mindset while doing that should not be we are teaching girls to know how to fight. It should be self-defense mechanism. So I think self-defense, the knowledge of self-defense for
individuals
is very,
very, very necessary. Yes, I also believe that self-defense, as much as it doesn't put you in harm's way, but it also gives you a chance to struggle. Some people say that they did not know how it happened and they just gave in. But I think self-defense, as you said, is a very good way to, as individuals, to end these things. And so we have unfortunately come to an end, but I would like to hear your last take on this movement, particularly now on the 16 days activism, what maybe you are doing individually or your organization, or what as a Nigerian, what you're part of for this activism.
Okay, thank you very much. So last year, that was 2023 now, we started this advocacy for the girl child. So we did about 1,000 girls in 5 schools, 2 schools in Lagos, 2 schools in Kaduna, and then 1 school in Abuja. And during those projects, we ensured that we sensitized the girl child on gender-based violence. And then after we did that girl child advocacy, I began to see that there's a gap. We cannot be sensitizing the girl child without sensitizing the boy child. Just like I said, because the girl child will still grow up to marry this boy child, and that's why there's a high rise of divorce in courts. Like if you go to courts now, if you check the court list, if there are about 20 matters on the court list, you see about 12 that will be divorce matters, and it's because all of these things are not being put into place. So this year we recently started an advocacy for the boy child, and then we were able to do 500 boys in Lagos. And then in the course of that advocacy, it was very clear to me that we also need to focus on the boy child. So my message to Nigerians now, and to every other person that is watching, is that first, gender-based violence is not something that the sensitization, the awareness should not just be streamlined to one gender, because we are connected. If the male gender is not properly sensitized, if the male gender do not have knowledge of the right things, if they do not do the right things, it will have a direct impact on the female gender.
Exactly.
And then apart from that, it's very important that for parents, for families, it's very important that we begin to sensitize children from the homes. Do not let your male child feel like he's superior to the female child, because those are where all of these things, where all of these things starts from. And I'm going to set an example very quickly. I ran for something a couple of weeks ago, and I personally experienced gender-based violence there. It wasn't physical, it was psychological. And then, you know, there were men that were going around to say, you want a woman to lead us, you want to vote for a woman. And then I don't have a problem with being led by a man. So why should you have a problem with being led by a woman? You know, because all of these things. And when I sat with that person and analyzed his thoughts, it was just clear that because of the part of the country where this man is coming from, you know, these are the kind of indoctrinations that he has had right from when he was a child. So I believe that it is very important. This is the time to begin to get rid of harmful indoctrinations, harmful societal norms, harmful societal, you know, harmful cultural practices that fuels this gender-based violence. And finally, I would say that gender-based violence, putting an end to it, is not the work of one person. It's not the work of an organization. It's not the work of the UN. It's not the work of the government alone. It's not the work of Fact News. It's not my work alone. It's a collective thing. We must come together as a nation, as a community, to individually say that we want to kick against this thing. In political parties, people need to stand up and say, no, you cannot do this to somebody because this person is a woman. In schools, teachers need to speak for the girl child. In offices, you know, we need to put in place institutions and structures that protects the women, that protects the girl child, and ensure that there is adequate sanction for people that breaks that violates that particular provision. So I believe that if we decide to come together as one body, as one nation, to kick against gender-based violence and to ensure that anything section 1 subsection 3 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria says that any law that is inconsistent with the Constitution will, to the extent of its inconsistency, be null and void. So any cultural practice that does not align with Chapter 4 of the Constitution that talks about the fundamental rights of Nigerians, it should be expunged. Those cultural practices should not even be allowed. So I believe that if we can look into all of those things, gender-based violence would reduce drastically.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much. Unfortunately, we have to end here. But there you have it, a beautiful conversation with Boluwatife Adenuga on gender-based violence and how Nigerians and every other person can work towards ending this violence. Thank you very much, and continue to stay tuned to Fact News Africa. Bye for now.